Many years ago, I saw a bumper sticker in the Boulder bookstore that read, "Keep Boulder Weird." I was taken aback actually at first by the bumper sticker with the thought like, hey, wait a minute. I live in Boulder and I'm not weird. I know, right? Denial. As I thought about it more, though, I realized that the person who created the bumper sticker for all of us recognized that there was something different about Boulderites, that the people here are unusual, and that our weirdness was something to be honored and kept. So I came to terms with being weird, and I accepted the label. And then just recently, a church friend, a Lutheran friend and pastor, had a bumper sticker on her car that read, "Keep church weird." Again, I was struck by my own oddness. Surely being a Christian isn't weird, or is it? This same friend of mine often describes the church as a cultural commute for unchurched people, especially people under the age of 40. I asked her what she meant by that, and she pointed out the insider language that we use. Just starting there. For example, we sing hymns, not songs. We read from bulletins, not programs. I'm standing in a chancel, not a stage. And the narthex is not a Dr. Seuss character. The narthex is a church lobby where people gather. She also pointed out that most churches have a formality that young people are unfamiliar with if they've never gone to church. We stand and we sit at a certain time. The bold print in the bulletin means that we read in unison, we perform sacred rituals, and we sing with others in public. Let's face it, folks, we are weird. As Jason and I were discussing the many things that keep church weird, I remembered a professor from ILIF who drew a diagram of why he believed people worldwide join and stay in religious community. The diagram showed what was unique about religious communities and why people liked that about themselves. It pointed to the things that are not necessarily offered in healthy ways in the secular world. The diagram is partially printed on your bulletin. And today we are highlighting identity as we progress through the next couple of weeks, we're going to fill in that diagram, so you're going to need to stay tuned for the others as we fill in the other two. I also want to say that in our joint efforts of being weird, we have bumper stickers as you leave that you can put on your car to say, hey, let's keep church weird. They're going to be in a basket on the way out. What characterizes the Christian church in the postmodern world is, in fact, its weirdness. If you identify with being Christian or have told people casually that you go in July praising and worshiping God, what's wrong with us? The church is home, is what's wrong with us. It's a home for people who feel a little out of step, or as St. Peter called us, strangers and aliens. This odd identity reminds me of a story about a boy named Norman in Robert Fulghum's book, Uh-Oh. A kindergarten teacher was asked to have her class dramatize a fairy tale for a teacher's conference. The children got to pick the story. After much discussion, the children achieved consensus on the favorite old fairy tale of Cinderella. Cinderella was a good choice from the teacher's standpoint because there was a lot of room from the discretionary padding of parts. Every child could play a part in the play. Of course, all of the little girls wanted to be Cinderella along with a few boys. And soon everyone was assigned a part, except for Norman. Norman was a quiet young man who didn't talk much. Norman thought that talking was a waste of time unless you had something really important to say. Concerned, the teacher asked pink long underwear, a paper cup for a nose, and a pipe cleaner for a tail. Norman the pig followed Cinderella everywhere she went and became a mirror of the action on stage. If Cinderella was happy, the pig was happy. If Cinderella was sad, the pig was sad. One look at Norman and you knew the emotion of the moment. At the end of the play, when the handsome prince played, and the barking, she had to admit, was done very well. The presentation was a smash hit, and guests received the standing ovation. Of course, Norman the barking pig, who after all was the real Cinderella. Jesus was much like Norman. The religious leaders of the day had written the script for the Messiah. When Jesus announced that he was the Messiah, others screamed at him, saying, Messiahs don't hang out with losers. Messiahs don't break rules. Messiahs don't question leadership. Messiahs don't make friends with riffraff or choose questionable people for their disciples. Jesus' reply was, this Messiah does. We too. Sure, emphasize our belonging to God. Built into our Christian identity is a divine, intimate relationship that begins with being known before we were even born. That's heavy, right? We remember that God knit us together in our mother's wombs. We remember that we are God's beloved children, and that who we will become is still a mystery. We learn about a God who cares so much about us and cares about what we do and who we are. We learn that we are God's. The Christian writer Henry Nouwen wrote a simple spiritual book called Life of the Beloved in response to a request by a secular friend who wanted him to explain the spiritual life in terms that he and his friends could understand, avoiding theology and technical language. Nouwen's response to this person was his book, and in it, the response was, "You are the beloved." Henry wrote, "Being the beloved expresses the core truth of our existence. Aren't you, like me, hoping that some person, thing, or event will come along to give you that final feeling of inner well-being you desire? Don't you often hope, may this book, idea, course, trip, job, country, or relationship fulfill my deepest desire? But as long as you are waiting for that mysterious moment, you will go on running, helter-skelter, always anxious and restless, always lustful and angry, never fully loved, long before our parents, teachers, spouses, children, and friends loved or wounded us. That's the truth of our lives. That's the truth I want you to claim for yourself. That's the truth spoken by the voice that says, you are my beloved." If you have ever read Henry, that is Henry's words. So there's the truth. It's the truth behind our identity that we are God's, not our own. Someone once said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you weird." Well, I encourage us to embrace our weirdness. Weirdness is important because it is the quality that adds color and texture and variety and beauty to the human condition. God doesn't make us the same. God affirms our differentness. Another pastor and writer, Mike Yaconelli, writes in his book, Messy Spirituality, about the plague of sameness. He writes, "Sameness is the disease with disastrous consequences. Differences are ignored, uniqueness is not listened to, our gifts are canceled out. Life, passion, and joy are snuffed out. Sameness is the result of sin and does much more than infect us with lust and greed. It flattens the human race, franchises us, attempts to make us all homogeneous. Sameness is the cemetery where our distinctiveness is buried. In a sea of sameness, no one has an identity. But Christians do have an identity. We're aliens. We are the odd ones, the strange ones, the misfits, the outsiders, the incompatibles. Oddness is a gift from God and sits dormant until God's Spirit gives it life and shape. Oddness is the consequence of following the one who makes us unique, different in his image." Mike and Henry were friends, can you tell? They know. They were preaching the same word. That we are the beloved. So let's revisit how weird we are again. Being Christian is weird enough, but we here at First Kong suffer from a double dose of weirdness in our identity. You may know where I'm heading with this, but as an example, every time I tell people that I'm a Christian pastor, people look at me like I'm kidding or like I'm lying. A tattooed, opera singing, hip hop loving, nose pierced, loud mouth mother of two just doesn't make sense in their understanding of being a pastor. First Kong has the same problem. We are a whole new subset of weird in the category of weird. We have an openness and inclusivity of people that is unusual for most people's understanding of church. Unlike some churches that interpret scripture in order to exclude people from God's loving embrace, First Kong has become a soft place to land for so many people wounded by Christianity and by life. We are a weird mix of history and tradition, progress and critical thinking, where classical world, gospel, and contemporary music collide, where grounded theology and cutting edge inclusion meet. Keeping First Kong weird means that our beloved nature shines in our values so that all people are beloved. We are weird among the weirdos. And I'm getting used to this idea because I am convinced that this is how Jesus would have it. I believe he would be relieved by our weird identity. We are the barking pigs. We are the barking pigs in the traditional heteronormative fairy tale of church. So let's embrace it. Let's embrace our weird identity as Cinderella's barking pigs. Let's claim it out loud. We are weird. We worship with women at the prison on Friday nights. We commit ourselves to ministry with those with mental illness. We are weird. We welcome children and teens and adults and elders into fellowship. We welcome people with disabilities, both hidden and seen. We welcome gays, lesbians, transgender, bisexuals, and those questioning their sexual orientation and gender identity. We welcome those who are on fire with Christ. We welcome those who don't have a faith at all. We are weird. We are a people who are pierced and tattooed, a people who ride bulls, a people who swing dance, a people who sing opera. We are people who are single and married and partnered and divorced and celibate. We are people who are alcoholics and drug addicts. We are people who love alcoholics and drug addicts. We are weird. We are people who wear Prada and a people who shop at Goodwill. We are weird. When the secular world wants us all to be the same,